Hey, Matt. No, yeah. My top 10 will be done in like I don't know, like maybe a week or two tops. Like it's good, man. It'll be real soon. Yeah, no, dude, I am 100% sure the top 10s, all the top 10s are going to be done like by the end of the month tops. Like it's definitely not going to be like last year where it's like 6 months late. I'm completely sure. Don't worry about it. Okay, great. Bye. Shit. 10. Now, Assassin's Creed has had a lot of ups and downs in the past couple of years. Probably the lowest point in recent memory being Assassin's Creed 3, which was just boring. It wasn't even just the first Assassin's Creed game that I didn't 100% and do all the side missions. It was the first game in the series that I couldn't bring myself to finish. It was just boring. I wasn't having any fun almost immediately in that game, and it never got any better. So when Assassin's Creed 4 was announced, I was pretty skeptical. But I have to admit that it is a wonderful breath of fresh air, and it's all due to sailing. Now, I hated sailing in Wind Waker. I absolutely hated it, which is why I'm so surprised that I love it in this game, and I'm not sure if that's of a change in tone from being Link in his little cartoon boat to, being a bunch of cool-ass pirates, or if it's due to the way it controls, but that's not really important here. What is important is that on top of probably one of the most solid Assassin's Creed like cityscape gameplay sequences that they've had, I just wanted to get back to the ocean. I wanted to hunt whales, I wanted to plunder ships, I wanted to sing sea shanties with my boys while we got the wind in our hair and the salt's hitting our face. There's just something about the sailing in this game that is just fucking great, and it is a damn shame that Unity and possibly other Assassin's Creed games in the future are going to stick mainly to land-based stuff, because the amount of different side quests and open world shit that you can do when you have a boat is just astounding. It's fantastic. Sailing is the best thing to happen to Assassin's Creed. Now, just because sailing's awesome doesn't mean that the rest of the game is just coasting on its sailing. Now, Connor from Assassin's Creed 3 was the most bland piece of untoasted bread main character that I've ever seen. He's fucking awful. And Edward Kenway, while not being quite as good as Ezio, more importantly than that, he is not Ezio. He is charismatic, he's a dashing rogue kind of guy, but he's got problems, and the biggest problem is he has just incredible delusions of grandeur that fuck his life up. And when you start the story from a place in which you are completely removed of all the Assassins, Templars bullshit, it really, really helps. Especially on top of the fact that, pirates are cool, man. Pirates are really, really, really cool. Now, it doesn't hurt the game that it's also gorgeous. I played it on PS4, and that ran at a incredibly locked 30 frames a second at 1080p after they put out that resolution patch. I had just gotten a new television, and this was the first game that I played and beat on my new TV, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. It looks great, it performs great, the open world is the most open it's ever been because of the sailing. And one thing that I have to really appreciate is that the change of setting to the Caribbean means that you have a series that has often been defined a lot by muted tones or color filters or the color of buildings or primarily what time of day it was. And here you have a lot of rich blues, you have a lot of ocean tones, and a lot of clash between tropical islands and the ocean, which I think really helps the color palette. I know that's a very specific thing, but it really mattered to me because if you look back at older games, you had, particularly in Assassin's Creed 2, you had cities that were green. This is the green city, this is the blue city, etc. It's not the best game in the world, but it is the best version of the Ubisoft, we're going to climb towers and give you side missions kind of game, and I really had a blast playing it. 9! So, a long time ago, there used to be a lot of brawlers. Final Fight, the Dungeons & Dragons games, the Ninja, I think it's called Ninja Baseball Batman, which is about baseball playing robots. There were a million of them, and they were all great. Well, no, not all of them. The ones I played were great. Matt has a particular fondness for Final Fight that everybody knows about, but for me, it was the Dungeons & Dragons games by Capcom. They were just amazing. You had secret paths, you had different characters that all had different stats, you could level up, it was fucking awesome. So that genre basically just died. It just fell off the face of the earth like adventure games and computer RPGs. And just like those genres, Dragon's Crown just brought this one back. And whether or not it stays for any length of time doesn't really matter, because Dragon's Crown is fucking awesome. So first of all, it's helmed by George Kamitami over at Vanillaware, who helped make and was part of the team that made those old Dungeons & Dragons games. And it shows. This is a very clear, unofficial sequel to those games. It feels good to hit things. Leveling up is now much more in depth, and your characters gain a wide variety of skills. The differences between the characters are the most of any brawler that I can currently think of. The art is utterly amazing, and even if you don't appreciate its particular art style, you cannot possibly dock it for its quality. There aren't that many stages in the game, but once you beat all of the stages and all of the hard stages, you do unlock a random sort of mix and match thing in a challenge dungeon, and as long as the core brawling is good and the bosses are good, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I want to just hit guys with my Amazon, I just want to hit guys with my Amazon. The game's online play works great. The game's cross-play works great. It has cross saves. The only big flaw I could say is that using the touch things, like to activate runes in the background, it works great on Vita. Works terrible on PS3. But if that's the worst I can possibly say about the game, it's really something special. It is a modern brawler, imagining that those games never stop being made. And I had so much fun playing it, even with the other guys who were just notorious shit heaps in all sorts of co-op games. If you're the kind of person who really enjoys just hitting things and leveling up and seeing good art, then I cannot recommend it enough. 8! Deadly Premonition is without a doubt one of the worst games I have ever played in my life. It is a technical fucking mess. The sound mixing is all over the place. It is sloppily made, it looks like complete garbage, and the story barely makes any sense at all. In addition, the controls are poor. So what the fuck is it doing here on my top 10? See, none of that matters, or maybe all of it matters. It's not super clear, but every part of it, all the shit and garbage and charm of how weird it is, just come together, and it just works. And I can't really explain it. Part of the reason is that it is a very, very obvious Twin Peaks ripoff. Twin Peaks is very close to my heart. I absolutely adore Twin Peaks, and this is as close to a TV show game as we're gonna get, except for Alan Wake, kind of. This is shameless. Characters are stolen, concepts are stolen, the whole general plot is stolen, but Twin Peaks is so fucking weird as a place to start. And Deadly Premonition goes so much farther with it in a shitty, janky, I can't believe this game got made kind of way that it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. Even when I think back to moments that I was furious, that I was frustrated, that I was banging my head against the wall, in particular, everything to do with Quint, I look back on it now, and how crazy is that? That I spent like days sitting outside some dude's house staring in his window because I wanted a super powerful wrench to kill zombies in a game in which the zombies are never explained. I I don't know if I can recommend it, but if you like so good it's bad movies, then you want to see what a game like that would look like, it's Deadly Premonition. 7! Super Mario 3D World is a first-party Mario game on the Wii U. It's a Mario game. It's really good. You jump on Goombas, you get mushrooms, etc. You know it's good. I know it's good. You know why it's good. I don't need to tell you that Mario games are good. It's good. It's really good. It's really, really good. There's cats, also. There's cats in this one. This is a cat. You use a cat suit. 6! Holy goddamn shit, does dive kick ass. Fucking kudos to Keats, Dave Lang, and everybody at Iron Galaxy, and everyone involved in making this game, including Matt and Wooly. Wow. Just fucking wow. The idea of a 2-button fighter with no movement stick, just dive and kick, it's genius. And what started as a joke, something to make fun of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, ended up becoming fun, like really, really fun. And people were worried that adding in new mechanics and adding any more characters than dive and kick and stuff like that would fuck the game up, would ruin it, would take away from that simple charm of that people saw the first time they saw it running at CEO or whatever tournament it was being brought around to. That's nonsense. This game is one of the best fighting games I have ever played. And it's not just because the Baz is in it, although that does help because the Baz is fucking awesome. No, it's just... It's so simple. I know everybody can play this game. Everybody can immediately get into what makes fighting games good. Mind games, positioning, strategy, all that good shit. And for somebody who's in the fighting game community, anybody who's even followed the fighting game community even a little bit over the years, there's a lot here for you in terms of fan service. You got Seth Killian as the boss. He does parries. He yells out "what an answer" when he does parries. He does teleports just like Seth from Street Fighter 4. You have Mr. N, who, well, let's just leave it at that. You got Jafali. You got it's like all these little in jokes. You got Kick. He's the fucking Fresh Prince. He's just the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's amazing. This game is stupendous, and it was going to be stupendous back when it was an indie, like, just joke demo that Keats was dragging around. But now that Iron Galaxy helped him turn it into a real game, it's all you need. It's the one true game. Dive Kick. I love Dive Kick. I love it. You should love Dive Kick. Start loving Dive Kick. 5! Last of Us is a pretty astounding game. If you had told me that the creators of Uncharted 2 would have been able to make one of the best games of 2013, you wouldn't have surprised me. If you had told me that they would have managed to create a story that made me actually care about a character that I initially hated, I would have probably had more trouble believing you. Last of Us' story, really, it hits all sorts of interesting notes with the futility of hope, a main character who's a complete piece of shit, but manages to make you empathize with them, and, well, I guess let's just get to Ellie. I hated Ellie at the beginning. Anyone who's watched the LP that Matt and I put up remembers that I initially started to call her garbage, and saw her pretty much as any other child character tag-along that is there to be in danger and give you a reason to go on your quest, and is just like a walking piece of exposition, I guess. And Ellie's still all those things, but the ability to see her grow as a character, to go from being a bone-headed, fucking stupid idiot into your partner, your team member, to play as her in those sections and be afraid for your life, and just, I didn't expect it, but she's generally really likable. And by the end of the game, the gameplay and the story actually synced up extremely well in that the goal of protect Ellie was synergized with both, and I really, really felt in tune with Joel's point of view. Now, the story's great, and that's fine, but it's a game too, and luckily it plays incredibly well also. There are some that don't really care for Last of Us's aiming in particular and the slow pace of the encounters. I personally love it. I view it as a mainstream, streamlined version of classic survival horror. All the elements are there. Zombies, obviously, but in addition to that, there are ammo constraints, there's supply constraints, there's health constraints, and more than anything, I think the developers really hit on the idea that you want to see an enemy. You want to see one enemy, and that enemy is no problem. If you see 2 or 3 or 4, numbers that would usually be totally trivial in other games, it can be a serious problem. And occasionally, you get 10, you get 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and these are disasters. These are actual nightmares. You can't even figure out, how am I even going to deal with all of these enemies? I have a brick, I have 1 Molotov, and I have 4 bullets. The stealth works great. The production, top to bottom, is fantastic. Fantastic performances all around by the voice acting crew. In particular, I want to give a shout out to Troy Baker, who did not do Troy Baker voice and really sold it as Joel. I don't have much more to add other than if you haven't played it, even if you have watched our LP of it, I highly suggest picking it up. It is a fantastic story, it is a fantastic gameplay experience, and more than that, it is great at combining both into one cohesive whole. 4! Danger's coming, looming large, so who's gonna make a stand? The 101 are taking charge, the line is drawn in the sand. Knuckles crack in 202 different ways, but each and every one has got the same thing to say.
Unite, morph!
Because their hearts beat as one.
Unite, can!
And put the bad guys on the run. When the job's too ominous for an average Jill or Joe, they go anonymous and watch their powers grow. Got no fame, no fortune to claim, fighting for the status quo. Don that mask and take them to task. Hurry, now it's time to go. They can do it, 'cause they're heroes second to none. The unstoppable, wonderful 101. The evil's coming, and you need a savior to appear. The 101 will take the lead, they gladly volunteer. Way up high, can you spy them in outer space? 202 eyes are looking danger in the face.
Unite, morph!
A single heart like a blade.
Unite, sword!
They dish out justice in spades. When the world is teetering and hanging by a thread, they administer a beating and stop the man instead. Go, go team, demolish those fiends, toss them in the garbage can. Wipe the floor with aliens galore till the world is spick and span. They can do it, 'cause they're bravest under the sun. The Unstoppable, wonderful, wonderful 101. 3. So, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is pretty simple to explain. Do you like Metal Gear games? Yeah, I do. Do you like character action games? Yeah, I do. Well, guess what? This is both of those things, and it excels at both. Despite the fact that the story is a really, really, really crazy-ass, typical Platinum, like rise to insane climax near the end, that's actually pretty appropriate for Metal Gear games after 4, with how crazy shit got with the microwave hallway and the nanomachines and all that fucking shit. So, Revengeance carries the theme of technology gone crazy forward, where now everybody is cyborgs and everything is fucked up, and PMCs did not go away at the end of MGS4. In fact, they're bigger than ever, and you pretty much have to become a cyborg. Now, there are some problems with the story. I think everything to do with Jack the Ripper is fucking stupid, but it's just an excuse to give you a cool Devil Trigger mode. Now, as for the action, it's fucking great. It's one of the best action games Platinum's ever made. It's fast, and I hesitate to use this because I know it's overused, but it is visceral. Slash and cut, or rather cut and take, Zendatsu, it feels awesome. You're slicing dudes in half. You're taking their spines. This is the Star Wars game that a lot of people like me who played the old Jedi Outcast games fantasized about. You cut and cut and cut and murder and murder and murder. Sneaking does factor in a little bit, but not really all that much. Sneaking is part of the new kind of aggressive stealth that games have nowadays, where the only reason you would sneak around is to kill people. The bosses are all amazing. The final boss in particular is someone that I thought I hated, and then I thought about it, and I realized I loved it. I love the fucking final boss in this game. Don't fuck with the Senator. Now, in addition to this, there are two things that I feel bear mentioning because they're kind of unique. The first of which is that the DLC for this game is fantastic. Most DLC, not so good. Blade Wolf, pretty good. That being said, Sam's DLC is amazing. Being able to play as a new character in a character action game is always a highlight, but being able to play as the primary antagonist, a guy who's just cool and styling all over you the whole game and has a completely radically different moveset. It's not even that he has a different moveset, he has a different like gameplay aesthetic, I guess. Whereas Raiden's all about lightning bolt action, which you would expect considering the title of the game, Sam's all about quick, decisive strikes like a samurai and taunting opponents. It's amazing. So on top of the amazing extra character, the one gameplay thing that I really feel that Revengeance has that puts it way, way over the top is its incredible use of music. Now, all the boss battles are accompanied with power vocals and metal. Like just crazy ass, like new metal, like guy just in his garage screaming about rules of nature. It's appropriate, but it's not my favorite kind of thing. What makes it special is that those vocals only kick in during power moments, during hype moments. When the music swells, it's because something crazy is happening, and it works perfectly in every single boss fight and takes what are already fantastic boss fights and brings them to a new level. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is one of the best Metal Gears, and it's one of the best character action games. It's fucking great. 2. It's 2. Shin Megami Tensei 4 is one of the best RPGs I've ever played and is probably the best one on the 3DS. It's incredibly easy to recommend this right alongside Persona 3 and 4. Now, Shin Megami Tensei is a lot older than Persona and is in fact the father series. There's only been the first 2 on the Super Nintendo, which never came out in the West until recently, and there's also Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, or SMT3, on the PS2. If you're not familiar, it's basically Pokemon with demons. And you fuse those demons together to get better, stronger demons. Now, this usually includes being able to fuse bosses. If you fought Asura and he kicked your ass, you're going to be really happy when you're able to turn him into a party member later in the game. Now, SMT4 is extremely difficult. It's pretty much like Dark Souls level of difficulty, but for a JRPG. The hardest part of the entire game is the very first room inside the tutorial, in which the very first random battle can kill you by chance. Don't let that get you down. The game is amazing. The music and the setting deserve special commendation. I don't really want to spoil the setting because it's so interesting, but suffice it to say, it starts off weird and only gets weirder. As far as the story goes, it's pretty light on character drama and exposition, focusing more on the ever-present SMT theme of order versus chaos. Now, it's important to note that in SMT4, and pretty much all the SMT games, that order and chaos are not synonymous with good and evil. They are very, very strict along those principles. One is freewheeling, anything goes, no matter what, and the other is totalitarian fascism. And as you go through the game, you will see yourself sway more towards one or the other and have to deal with the negative consequences of those actions and that philosophy. I don't really want to spoil too much of the story because it's so amazing. And it's not amazing in the kind of, aha, I got you, it was me all along kind of shit. But it's just such an interesting place. A lot of games focus on characters. I'd say the Persona series is a very character-driven RPG series, whereas the SMT series is theme and setting based. The more you spend in the SMT4 setting, the more you'll get to know it. You'll travel around, you'll go to all the different stations, and you'll really get a sense of how things are and how fucked up the world is at this point in time. In order to counter the incredible difficulty of this game, Atlus has finally given up and given us some convenience features that people have been asking for in the SMT series at large for decades. For the first time ever, you will not immediately game over if your main party member dies. This is fantastic because there are too many situations in which one of your party members can just instantly die from eating a bad light or dark spell or just getting a bad crit. In addition, the press turn system is back in addition to smirks, which lets you gain extra turns by smartly outmaneuvering your opponents. There's also a new fusion calculator, which is by far the most robust and in-depth version they've ever had in any game in the SMT series. You can get recommendations on what you should fuse. You can include compendium in searches that you can tailor according to what type of demon you want, what type of skills you want them to have, etc. It's fantastic and takes a lot of the busy work and trial and error out of creating new demons for your party. There's a whole lot that I honestly want to rant about, but there's not a whole lot you can say without spoiling huge chunks of the story, and more importantly, huge parts of the setting. It's a fantastic JRPG that also has a huge amount of new content if you manage to get the neutral path, which I highly recommend you at least attempt, even if you've beaten the game, because there is so much extra content behind it that it's worth it. Many of the DLCs that are story-based are pretty good, and the DLCs that earn you levels and money and all that stupid shit are not necessary to beat the game in any way. The game is actually just really, really hard. SMT4 is great, and it takes its place alongside Persona 4 Golden as some of the best JRPGs to ever be released. 1. I have to admit that I'm pretty shocked myself that neither both Platinum Games or SMT4 managed to make it to number 1, but Monster Hunter just absolutely devoured my life for 2013 and some of 2014 as well. I was always nervous about Monster Hunter, and to a point I didn't really get it. I thought it had tons of downtime and that it was just kinda shitty and controlled bad. Luckily, I gave it a shot, especially after I realized the kind of experience I had with the Souls series, in which it kept turning me off, but once I got into it, I really, really took to it. Monster Hunter is like that. It has an enormous learning curve, something that really hurts it in the long run. The tutorials are poor. The information inside the game itself is very sparse, and it's really hard to get a handle on it. And due to that, I'd really have to say that I extremely appreciate Pro Jared's Guide to Monster Hunter. If you have any interest in this series, I highly recommend you check it out. Monster Hunter is a very, very simple game once you boil it down. You go out, you get stuff. You use that stuff to make a big sword. You use that sword to fuck up a dinosaur. Then, you take pieces of that dinosaur, and you go home, and you make a cool set of armor out of its bones, and you put more shit on your sword to go kill a bigger dinosaur. When I started, I didn't know my Jaggy from my Baggy from my Baroth to my Barioth to my Ciadeus to my Agnator to my Deviljho. But now, they're all in there. I fought each of them dozens and dozens of times and have most of their armors. Because it's awesome. It's a blast to fight them. You have to find them, you have to track them, you can trap them, you're cutting off their tails, you're breaking their face, you're blowing up their horns with bombs. It's an amazing thrill. In addition, this is one of my favorite co-op games of all time. I'm not the kind of person who traditionally likes co-op, but here it's just, it feels great. I'm setting up the trap, but my buddy's setting up the bombs, or I stun it with my hammer, and then that lets the guy with the gun lance come over and get a huge power shot that breaks its horns. It really comes together into something special. So it's fun to fight monsters. How much downtime is there really? How impenetrable is it really? The difficulty of getting into it and the downtime required are overstated. You are going to have to fight monsters dozens of times, but it's going to be fun. And by the time you get something set, you will know that monster backwards and forwards, and you'll be able to help a friend defeat it no problem, so that they can get their armor and work up to something bigger. And that's probably the best thing about Monster Hunter. There's always something bigger. Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate has something like 65, 66, maybe 67 monsters. There's a lot in here. I spent almost 200 hours playing this game, and I didn't even get to all the monsters. There's always something bigger, something tougher, something cooler, something that will give you better gear, always on the horizon, and it's always a challenge. If you're the kind of person who is able to get into Dark Souls despite its punishing difficulty, then I highly, highly suggest you check out Pro Jared's Guide to Monster Hunter and hop on and get hunting.